Israel gets Caterpillar bulldozers, particularly their D9s and their D10s. Once Israel gets these D9 and D10 bulldozers, they militarily modify them in their Ramta division of the Ramta military division in Israel. And they modify them to equip them with bulletproof windows, machine gun mounts, grenade launchers, and 6-foot blade in the front, a 15-foot ripper in the back. It essentially becomes a war machine. And a West Bank military general has said that the bulldozer is, quote, the key weapon of the military occupation. One of the most prominent examples of extrajudicial killings that we know as an American public is the murder of Rachel Corrie on March 16, 2003. And in 2003, the home that she was staying at, the home of a Palestinian physician, was slated for demolition. And when the Caterpillar bulldozer came out to the home, she wanted to stand in between the bulldozer and the home, not in a silly, simple-minded way that she thought she can stop the demolition, but she thought that using her body just to stand there would at least delay the demolition of the home so that the physician's family can take out their most valuable goods before the demolition, because mind you, before these homes are demolished, the families aren't given sometimes more than 15 minutes to leave. Imagine someone knocking on your door and saying you have 15 minutes before we destroy the roof over your home and all of your most valuable and cherished belonging, your children's security, and you have 15 minutes to leave. So Rachel stood in between the bulldozer and the home. She wore a bright orange vest, and the driver of the bulldozer was at least 1,000 feet in front of her. Clearly, Rachel was visible. And the driver of the bulldozer drove straight to her. And when she actually realized that this driver wasn't going to stop and tried to climb the dirt mound to get out of the way, the blade on the bulldozer dragged her feet underneath it and trampled her. Not once, but it rolled back over her again and then over her a second time and murdered Rachel Corrie. But Rachel is one of the more prominent cases. Other cases include 38-year-old Jamal Fayed, who was a paraplegic, a refugee in Jenin refugee camp, who was in his home during the April 2002 incursion into Jenin. And because he's a paraplegic, he couldn't leave the home on his own. And his mother and his sister begged the soldiers to be able to help Jamal out of his home. But before they can even argue, the bulldozer rammed into the home and one of the walls crushed Jamal to death. Another story is about Ibrahim Mahmoud Khalafallah, a 70-year-old father, a grandfather, who was in his home and too old to be able to leave on his own. And before he can leave, the home was demolished over him. And when his daughter and his wife came back to look for his body, they found his eyes filled with rot.
الماضي تبعي ومسح الحاضر وفيش مستقبل. ما في. أنا بتخرج كمان 4 أشهر، فيش عندي كل أغراضي كانوا محطوطين على الكمبيوتر. ما عندي. إيش ده بلش أرجع أبلش من الصفر. لا مسحني مسح الماضي تبعي، فيش ماضي عندي، فيش ذكرى. ذكرياتي وأنا طفلة راحت. صوري ما فيش عندي، لا في ولا أي شيء. كل مقتنياتي الشخصيه فيش ما ضلش عندي ولا شيء. بدي ابدا من الصفر، بدي ابدا من جديد، يعني كانه انولدت بدي ابدا من اول وجديد. ظلم. انا بدرس ديمقراطيه الانسان، انا بنادي بالانسانيه بكرامه الانسان. انا هي رساله بوجهها لكل العالم. احنا بدنا سلام مع كل المرأة، كل الظلم اللي انا مرقت فيه انا واهلي، يعني انا بعاني.
collection of those. I think for me the one that sticks out the most is an officer from an elite unit telling us about his experiences in Rafah. And his testimony is very, very long, so I won't say it all, but he talks about two main issues. One is the demolition of houses, and he describes how in the briefing they were told that the procedure is you don't go into Rafah on foot, because it was right after the APCs blew up. If you remember, that was in the summer of 2004, and it was very hectic, and you couldn't walk by foot, so you come with APCs, tanks, and bulldozers. D9 Caterpillar bulldozers, giant monsters. And before you even say something to the family that you're going to take their house, before you do anything, the D9, the bulldozer, digs 8-meter deep ditch surrounding 360 degrees, surrounding the house. Then he punches a hole. You don't say anything to the family, you just punch a hole into one of the walls, and then the APC comes right up to the family's home, and you lower the ramp, and the soldiers go in. And I was asking him, who's deciding which houses? And then he describes to me how they demolish, how they destroy every house in that area that bothers their observation, that might be threatening, everything. And I asked him, who decides what to destroy? And he says, well, the officers in the field. And you have to understand, these could be lieutenants, 21-year-old lieutenants, decide what to destroy and what not to destroy. And then when I ask him, and no one told you criteria of what you can and what you can't, I mean, if the officer decides that he doesn't like, I don't know, a yellow house, and the house is yellow, exactly the words that I used. And he says, well, if he doesn't like yellow, he can destroy it. And it's that easy. And I think for me, that was an amazing, it's still something that I carry every day, because it's exactly how the procedures, how the policy are so corrupt from the start, that when they are carried out in the field, the amazing power that you have as a 19, 20-year-old soldier carrying out these policies, these procedures on the field, are just so tragic, or are disastrous.